Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Sir Hillary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, talks on reparations. This story takes the lead in our 962nd edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 13th October 2020. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. International Day of Reparations was observed on Monday, October 12th. On Sunday, the NGC Bocas Lit Fest hosted a one-on-one online conversation with CARICOM Reparations Commission Chairman Sir Hillary Beckles. Anselm Gibbs of TV6 News has the details.
And you're talking about £7 trillion if you were to make a calculation on the unpaid labor Britain took from the Caribbean. That is more than their GDP.
CARICOM Reparations Commission Chairman Sir Hillary Beckles says that's just a reference to show the enormity of what's owed. Should reparations be paid, do not expect to see checks being handed out on street corners.
An investment development fund, globally and nationally managed for the purpose of sponsoring economic and social development at the site of the extraction. This was the model that was used largely by the Jewish reparations committees.
Speaking during the NGC Bocas Lit Fest discussion, Sir Hillary said although a number of Caribbean countries are independent, the region is still reeling from the effects of colonialism.
When the United Nations declared in the 1960s they were going to set up these international bodies to push through decolonization, that was 60 years ago. The process is not complete. So we need to go back to the United Nations and say, those committees on colonization that were part of the rethinking of the New World, you need to come back to the table because the process is not complete.
Anselm Gibbs, TV6 News.
The World Health Organization WHO is advising countries against lockdown measures in the global fight against COVID-19. In an interview with British magazine The Spectator, David Nabarro, World Health Organization Special Envoy for COVID-19, urged countries to develop better systems for controlling the deadly virus so as to get the economies going again and get on with their lives. Meanwhile, data out of the United Kingdom is showing COVID transmission to be much less rampant in the places you've been told to expect it most. TV6's Renessa Cutting reports.
We in the World Health Organization do not advocate lockdowns as a primary means of control of this virus. The only time we believe a lockdown is justified is to buy you time to reorganize, regroup, rebalance your resources, protect your health workers who are exhausted. But by and large, we'd rather not do it.
We're now a full 9 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, and many countries around the world are still grappling to get the virus under control. For many, partial or full lockdowns have been the first resort. But now the WHO is strongly advising against this approach.
Just look at what's happened to the tourism industry, for example, in the Caribbean or in the Pacific, because people aren't taking their holidays. Look what's happened to smallholder farmers all over the world because their markets have got dented. Look what's happening to poverty levels. It seems that we may well have a doubling of world poverty by next year.
Only Saturday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley relaxed restrictions to allow for increased flights to Tobago and the resumption of Bucca Reef and Caroni Swamp tours. The Spectator, a weekly British magazine, reports that across the UK, new COVID restrictions are taking effect. Scotland has moved to shut down all pubs and restaurants for everything but takeaways, and parts of North England may soon follow suit. But ironically, research out of the UK is showing that these institutions are in fact not largely responsible for the spread of COVID-19.
But as you can see here, Andrew, so far it's thought that outside of household mixing, out in public venues, food outlets and restaurants are accounting for 4% of where incidents are confirmed for outbreaks of 2 or more cases. The workplace, education settings, and care homes are significantly higher.
Here in Trinidad and Tobago, similar measures have been implemented and re-implemented where it concerns restaurants and bars. And the Barkeepers and Operators Association has been lobbying government to lift the restrictions. Government has stated its intention to review restrictions on the sector with a view to making a decision by October 24th.
We are hoping that that good sense prevails and they realize that what they are doing is in fact very incorrect and it is contrary to what they have so confidently purported before. The landlords don't want to hear 2 weeks again, and the bank doesn't want to hear 2 weeks again. And that's the challenge that we are faced with right now.
Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. In another item out of Trinidad and Tobago, President of the Trinidad and Tobago's Public Service Association and NATOC, Watson Duke, often strident and disrespectful in his rantings, is not pleased with the Prime Minister's comments on Saturday that public service workers are abusing the rotation system due to the weak management in the service. Moreover, he is objecting to the statement that workers who do not show up to work will not be paid for that day. According to Duke, that simply cannot happen. But he's advising workers, if it does happen, to give him a call. TV6's Renessa Cutting again tells us more.
Anytime you're absent from work, nobody cannot deduct the pay of a monthly paid officer. It is wrong. Nobody can stop your pay. Anytime anybody stop any monthly paid worker's pay, come and tell me.
PSA President Watson Duke is vowing to personally represent any worker who has their pay cut due to absenteeism. As he notes, many persons are facing extenuating circumstances during this pandemic period.
So don't feel because you don't come for a day because your child have lessons or your child not feeling well or it is not safe to leave a child home because of the environment in which you are living in. So you have to stay home some extra days. Stay home. Stay home with your child because the Child Protection Act is quite clear. Anytime you leave a child under the age of 18 home and anything before that child is jail for you.
Duke further adds workers can take days away from work without approved leave once there is a reasonable excuse. But even if there is not, Duke asserts a process must be followed.
One thing they cannot do is not to pay you. They have to pay you. They may try to recoup the money at the end of when you retire, but we will deal with that because the truth be told, only a disciplinary process can result in a worker not being paid for a day that they stayed home. You are not a daily paid. Daily pays are different.
In fact, the PSA president notes the Civil Service Act provides for instances where a worker is absent without leave for extended periods of time.
If you have absented yourself for 1 day, no one can say you resigned. If you absent yourself for 2 weeks without any reason, no one can say you resigned. If you absent yourself for 3 weeks without any reason, no one cannot say you resigned and a vacancy does not exist. But if you absent yourself for a whole month, then you would have resigned in accordance with the law, Section 49.
Duke says the PSA has long since taken their concerns to government.
We've been negotiating with the CPO for workers to stay home with their children and get paid. We negotiate that. The document has gone to the finance minister and the cabinet to sign off.
Additionally, Duke is questioning the Prime Minister's account that productivity has been affected due to persons allegedly staying home from the job, and he's asking that the state provide the PSA with a copy of those findings.
He's saying that some organization in the civil service produces about 2,500 transactions when the month comes, and for the month, they only produce about 65. Prime Minister, where is such a place? You are creating a situation so when you say to people let's privatize the civil service, as I've done in some places, you will be without challenge.
Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
In other news, Guyana's opposition leader Joseph Harmon is accusing the PPP regime of attempting to stymie and prosecute Afro-Guyanese, using the Guyana police force as its weapon. Wendell Badri of HGP Nightly News explains more in this report.
Leader of the opposition, Joseph Harmon, is accusing the PPP government of operating a campaign of persecution through the Guyana police force against Afro-Guyanese, more so, staff members of the Guyana Elections Commission. The opposition leader labeled this as an attempt to dismantle the Guyana Elections Commission, thereby rendering it ineffective on the basis of holding credible elections.
It is an assault on democracy and can cause irreparable damage to the fundamental basis of our electoral system.
Speaking to the arrests of several members of staff of GCOM to date, the opposition leader noted that no staff of any other ethnicity have been treated in like manner, and that no presiding officer or any other GCOM officer responsible for missing poll books, ballot papers, and other polling documents have been questioned, much less detained by the police.
This is not an investigation. It is a campaign of intimidation, bullyism, and psychological warfare being waged by the police under the direction of the People's Progressive Party regime. No other person working in the commission of any other ethnicity has been treated this way.
The opposition leader is positing that in addition to its bullyism tactic, the PPP regime is operating a more insidious campaign by depriving members of Afro-Guyanese communities of economic power, where he pointed out examples of the enormous amounts of money being posted for bail by those GCOM officers who have so far been arrested and charged.
These sums of money, when you look at them, these are ordinary people, ordinary working people. And therefore, to find that bail becomes an economic problem. Secondly, once they are charged on these trumped up charges, they have to go and get a lawyer. They have to find more money for a lawyer. And then, of course, there's court bail, which they have to find.
The opposition leader preferred that since August 2nd, 2020, the Guyana Police Force has breached the constitutional rights of a number of Guyanese, in particular, several members of staff of GCOM, whom he says were arrested on trumped-up charges and baseless accusations and investigations. He posited that these can be seen as discriminatory practices, especially against Afro-Guyanese, whom he claims are being targeted and persecuted by the Guyana Police Force. Meanwhile, on the basis of at least 2 government ministers who are alleged to have been directly involved in investigations and questioning of detainees, Mr. Harmon called into question the motives of the charges against the officers detained, while deeming same as illegal and unconstitutional. Wendell Badri for HGP Nightly News.
CARIFESTA 15 has been postponed until 2022. Antigua and Barbuda was scheduled to host the 15th edition of the Caribbean's Festival of Arts, scheduled for August 11th to 21st, 2021. But the event will now take place over the same period in 2022. Minister for Culture Darrell Matthew says the decision was based on health reasons and the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, there were 2 options on the table, really. One being to postpone for 1 year, or the second option being to cancel CARIFESTA 2021 altogether, and we go to the next iteration, which would have been in 2023, because CARIFESTA is held every 2 years. So 2019, 2021, 2023. We decided not to seek a cancellation and go directly to 2023 for a few reasons. Firstly, we believe that, well, not we believe, we know that there are several countries that have already expressed an interest in hosting in 2023 for different reasons. And we also believe that with the advanced stage in the planning that we were here in Antigua and Barbuda, we're confident and comfortable that the crisis or the crises, both health and the economic, would have abated by 2022, where we can now successfully host the CARIFESTA.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.